It's time once again to slip into your camo, grab your bow, and join us out in the field for another episode of the Up North Journal, presented by PSE Archery. The Up North Journal crew is knocked and ready to rock for another exciting adventure. So let's step outside and hit the trail.
This episode of the Up North Journal podcast is brought to you by
PSE Archery, Yamaha Outboards, Better the Hunt, Easy Cut, Packer Max, Deer Camp Coffee, Buck Baits, JPO Game Calls, Limwalker Game Calls, Wild Seasoning, Total Peep, Sunrise Archery, Scent Lock, and Scent Blocker.
Hey, it's Thursday night.
It's Thursday night, and we're back on.
Back on Thursday night, man. Just like the old times almost.
Well, it's after Labor Day, and, you know.
Yeah.
Weather's changing, man. It's
oh my gosh.
64 degrees out there right now.
It is a bit nippy out. Man, does it feel like bow season already or what?
It feels awesome out there.
I tell you what, last night was awesome. The weather was great.
Yeah, it was.
That was a good night.
You know what was neat? We shot our bows last night, obviously, if you haven't seen the videos.
Go check them out.
You know we had mosquitoes, right?
Yeah, there was a few of those.
But a couple hours later when it got cold, yeah, they weren't around.
Yeah, so that's why you put the thermostat away, huh? You didn't want to waste it all on me.
Well, no.
Yeah, I see how you are. Oh, man.
Oh, Lord.
Well, I tell you what, you ready to kick this thing off?
I am ready to kick this thing off.
All right, let me get our audio going here, and we will shake a leg. So here we go. Stand by in 3, 2, and 1. Welcome back to another episode of the Up North Journal, everybody. Host Mike Adams sitting in the cabin tonight on a glorious Thursday evening with Dan DeFall. What is going on?
I tell you what, I don't know about you, but the chill's in the air. It is a nice 64 degrees right now in your hometown.
Is that what it is? 64
and
degrees?
you didn't turn your sound down.
No, I was trying to.
Uh-huh. You always yell at me.
I'm the audio
I
guy.
got you.
I can take care of this.
Oh, okay. So, it's awesome. We shot our bows last night.
Yeah.
Did you like the welcoming committee that I provided you when you walked into the backyard?
I tell you what, it's awful doggone tempting when you walk out back to shoot and there's deer standing between you and the target.
Right?
That was something, all right, for sure.
So that was pretty cool. But yeah, so time for some get out there, do some shooting. Obviously with the cooler airs, get out, get some cider and donuts.
Always food with you.
It's got to be food.
How about some deer camp coffee?
How about some deer camp jerky?
Well, that'll work too. We can sit here and talk all night about this stuff. We gotta get going.
We do. I'm waiting for you to finish with your phone.
I'm talking. I'm ready. Let's go.
Well, let's get to our sponsors, man.
All right. We'll have at it.
All righty, folks. Here in Southern Michigan, this weekend, we have Woods and Water over in Imlay City. And Buck Baits is going to be there. That's right, folks. If you want a 20% discount on your order from buckbaits.com, use the promo code UNJ20, and you'll get 20% off there.
We'll be there, too.
We will be there, too. $25 off your order with Packer Max. Lincoln Roan is on his way to Saskatchewan to do some hunting.
Okay.
But you can give them a shout over there, get $25 off your order of your Packer Max if you use the code UNJ25. JPO Game Calls, Paul, he's going to be on next week. JPO Game Calls get you 10% off if you use the promo code UNJ10. And next week we'll talk to him about his game calls.
Check out that Omni system.
That's right. WildSeasoning.com. That's right. UNJ 2021 gets you 10% off your order there. And you can have your seasoning for your meats.
There you go.
Or vegetables.
Mm-hmm.
And last but not least, you're drinking it right now. I think it's cold brew.
It is cold brew.
And also, we have our own brew, the Up North Journal brew. That's right, folks. Up North Journal has their medium roast label with Deer Camp Coffee.
Light and dark roast, too.
And if you want UNJ, use the promo code UNJ10 and you'll get 10% off your order at deercampcoffee.com.
Got mine right here. Cold brew night, fresh batch, just made it last night. Just finished it up last night.
Right. So, I tell you what, last night shooting, I think you started off fantastic. But the person that helped set up our bows is with us tonight.
That's right. None other. Mr. Vaughn, Derek Vaughn. What is going on tonight?
Not much, guys. How's it going?
Doing good, and thank you for a fabulous setup of the, what's that?
You gotta check that. We'll look at that.
Oh, okay.
He'll fix it.
You're welcome.
So there you
So,
there you go.
there you go.
The new PSE Evil 32. You shooting the 34.
I am shooting the 34, and I love it. I tell you what, you talk about steady in the hand. We shot. If you watch the videos, you can see how they shot. So, Derek,
Yeah.
it's that. Well, I'll just say it. It's silly season in September here in Michigan with October 1st around the corner. How's business going?
It's going great. I mean, it's hard to keep up. Hard to keep everything in front of you. Focus on the task at hand when so much is going on there. But business is great. I mean, couldn't be much better.
Well, it typically ramps up this time of the year. And we talked about this at the shop a little bit, especially for the last year with everything going on with the pandemic and all that. Compared to, let's say, 3 years ago, when before COVID, how are you guys rocking right now compared to then?
It's far busier than it was before COVID. It's about the same as last year as far as busy season so far. The year in general has been busier, but we didn't get shut down this year, so it's been more spread out a little bit, I guess you could say. But overall, I mean, we have double the amount of bows that we had 2 or 3 years ago in this time of year for service.
Wow.
Okay. It's pretty wild.
I tell you what, the rack of bows that you have up there for hanging from the ceiling is where you place them. That you're going to be working on them. I tell you what, it is neat to see the golden oldies. Mm-hmm. A couple of them up there, the wood handles.
Oh yeah, we see them all.
And that's awesome. What's it like to you got all these modern day PSE, Matthews, Bear, and then all of a sudden somebody brings in like one of the old Dartons or something like that.
Like an MX-50.
Right, exactly. What's that like to work on something like that as opposed to a bow like today?
For me, it's not that big a deal. I started working on in the late 90s, so at that time, they were all old now, you could say. Some of the younger guys at the shop, when the older bows come in, they kind of just look at me and put their hands out like, what do I do with this one, So, I'm not that old, but I've been doing it a long time, so I can't say I've seen everything, but I've seen a lot, and I've worked on a lot of different bows, from the bows from the, early 80s till obviously the new stuff, so I don't get caught off guard too often anymore, but it can happen.
Well, looking at how busy you guys are right now, we're to the 9th of September here. Some places have already started archery season, but here in Michigan we don't start for another 22 days, roughly. Mm-hmm. Too late to bring something in and get it back before season, depending on if it's just something pretty simple, getting tuned up and ready to go?
No, if we don't need parts, we're still turning those around for tune-ups, that kind of stuff in 1 or 2 days, which is really good. Now, if we have to order parts, we're at the discretion of what it is. If it's strings, it might be 10 days to 2 weeks, so we still could squeeze them in. After this weekend, it's going to get hairy on string jobs. If it's cams or modules, stuff like that, limbs, it really depends on the manufacturer and the availability of the parts. Once we get the stuff in our hands, we'll stay as long as we have to or get there as early as we have to get it back to the customer this time of year. It's not an option to let it sit there. So we're turning them out pretty good.
Well, that's good news, especially for people here in Michigan, in the area. So if anybody's got something sitting around and something happened and you need to get it tweaked or what have you, take it in and get in line, I guess, is the best thing to tell them, right?
Yeah, I told the guys the other day that if we don't have the bow by this Saturday for strings, it's going to be sketchy whether we can promise it for the opener. I feel like next week is a probably. The following week, it's a probably not. You know, it's kind of one of those things.
There you go. So take care of those strings.
I can almost hear the running in on September 28th or something. Hey, can you fix this?
I mean, with the bows, you can usually see it coming unless there's a dry fire or a derail or something like that. The crossbows are the tough ones because usually when they break the strings, it's, you know, an accidental dry fire. They didn't have the arrow set in properly, or the bolt, whatever you want to call it. You know, they didn't have it, you know, the knock all the way up against the string, or they had it turned wrong, etc. You know, and a lot of times when that happens, it's a one and done. You know, there's no warning. It's just broke. So those are the tough ones that you get late, that you know, that catch guys off guard for sure.
Well, how are we looking right now? Like, we're getting ready for archery season. Let's say we need some new arrows. Are arrows tough to get right now? Broadheads, maybe a new release, those items?
If you're looking for an exact product, it can be tough, but we have options. You know, if you're willing to maybe change from what you normally shoot or try something similar. We have a lot of inventory in general, but some specific arrows and some specific spines are tough to get, and they're behind on. But in general, we have something that's going to work for you if you're willing to try something different.
Again, we were just talking about this before we went on. Sometimes bow people can be a little anal about it. If you don't have specifically what they want, they're not going to change. I've seen that.
I can't buy that. That's the wrong color.
Right. But you know, Eric Dabb says the key to it all is having multiple bows, so you never without one.
You know, and that's what I did this year. You know, when I took the bow in to get set up with Derek on Friday, I brought last year's arrows with me, so that way I've got my backup bow in case something happens. I don't have to depend on, you know, waiting on string or waiting on a limb or whatever happens that I might need. So that way, and I always take another bow with me if I go for like a week hunt. I always take another bow.
Well, yeah, because you know, whether I'm in the UP or you're in Indiana, Derek, I know you've got leases outside the state. You know, you just can't.
Yeah, you can't just rely on one thing.
Right.
Well, yeah, obviously, if you can afford to have a backup bow, that's great. Not everybody can, unfortunately, so you got to take care of the one you got, but obviously the backup bow would be the ideal route.
You know, speaking of that, what would you suggest would be like a little a box full of items to take with you on a trip? Like when you go to your leases and stuff, or you're heading out of state hunting, what would you suggest in maybe throwing it in a little box, kind of like what a need-to thing to take with you?
I haven't done a lot of big, you know, what I would call like adventure long, where I'm going to be gone a long time or away from where I could get something hunts. So, you know, out west or anything like that, I haven't done that kind of hunt really. But in general, you know, an extra release, D-loop material, maybe some serving material, stuff like that can, you know, break at any time. If I was going on a big hunt, I would have a whole setup probably. You know, a whole other bow. You know, if I was going out west, if possible. I know that could be tough if you're, you know, packing in or doing something like that, but at least somewhere you could get to it. Maybe an extra arrow rest, like a whisker biscuit, that's something that's easy to slap on if you had a, you know, fell and broke a rest or something like that. There's a lot of things you could take, and most people probably don't take stuff like that, but it wouldn't be a bad idea to have it.
Absolutely, because you know, D-loop breaks on you, or your release messes up, or you somehow bust your rest. Yeah, absolutely. But you know, I know Denny Steiner. He takes when he goes to Africa, he takes 2 bows. Mm-hmm. I think 2 bows, and he switches out the sight, I think, too.
Yeah, because he shoot depending on what game he's shooting. He'll shoot a heavier, a big heavy arrow versus a regular hunting arrow.
Right. So, right. But yeah, so definitely. Oh, and by the way, for those of you in southeast Michigan here, in our area, if you go over to sunrisearchery.com, you can check out the website. You can check out the shop. Really cool shop. There's a whole bunch of mounts in there. And also, they just don't sell archery. You also sell boots there as well.
Yep. Lots of boots.
Yes, they do, because I got a brand new pair this week.
That's right, you did. So get over to sunrisearchery.com. Check out their website. And plus, you can also follow them on Facebook as well. Go check them out. Give them a like. Share them. Everybody in that shop is definitely top-notch, friendly. I definitely get the feeling now working with you guys as long as we have. We never got that we're beneath you kind of thing. So great people, great talent over there. I know it's busy. Make sure take care of your bows. Go get them checked out if you can.
Well, before we go to break here, what's probably one of the things that a lot of guys overlook that they can do at home right now to get them ready for the season? As far as, everybody needs to go out and shoot, but what's the one thing a lot of guys overlook that needs to have some attention paid to it?
Just make sure you have the essentials early, especially with the times now, stuff running out of stock. If you need arrows, get them early. You need broadheads, get them early, because when they're gone, you might not get the same ones you're looking for. Obviously, the strings and cables we touched on earlier. It doesn't cost anything to have them looked at, so we'll give you an opinion at no charge whether you need them or not. Wax your strings and cables, all that kind of stuff. And people are, doing stuff earlier than ever. I feel like people are more patient than ever in the shop, and I think it's because they're experiencing the same thing everywhere. There's just not as much stuff available when you want it as there used to be in many aspects of life right now. So it's kind of refreshing to see people be more patient. You don't get as many people that are upset that their bow is going to be in the shop for a week instead of 3 or 4 days, or whatever it might be.
A kinder, gentler hunting community.
says the people that throw sand in each other's face at any given moment.
Right.
Speaking of waxing your bowstrings or your crossbow strings, what do you suggest? How often to do that?
It can depend on which bow it is. If it's a newer bow, older bow, if it's harsh cam, soft cam. But people seem to either never wax their string or over wax their string. And there's very few that seem to just periodically wax it, and that's really all you really need to do. Guys that don't shoot a lot, if they're waxing their string 2 or 3 times a year, that's probably plenty. Some bows come in where there's so much wax on the strings and cables, we have to almost bathe the cams when we do, replace the strings because they're coated. And really, they're waxing areas that don't need to be waxed, up around the cams, on the serving, and stuff like that. And really, you're loading your string down with a lot of extra weight that's actually slows your bow down. It's not necessary, and it's really not doing you any good for longevity. So once a month isn't a bad rule of thumb. If you're shooting a ton, maybe twice a month, if that. I'll be honest, I don't shoot any individual bow a ton. I might wax my strings once or twice each year per bow, and my strings all look fine. But working in the shop, I'm going through bows every year. I'm not keeping them for 5 or 6 years. So as the string ages, and we might have to do it a little bit more frequently. But there's not a set rule per se.
Kind of sounds like the way you're describing it is you shoot more, you wax more.
Yeah, pretty much.
It's really all it is. If you do shoot a league or something like that, you could tend to wax more. If not,
there you go.
If you go out west in hot, dry conditions, it can eat your strings up. You probably want to wax them. If you get stuck in the rain and your strings get soaking wet, that can actually dry them out. As they dry out, it can dry around them. So there's weather factors involved too, depending on what kind of conditions you get wrapped up in.
All right. Well, there you go, guys and gals. I tell you what, we're bumping up on our first break here. Let's take a step outside.
We got a couple questions when we come back.
All right, sounds good. We're going to step outside. We'll be right back after this.
Keep those questions coming in, and we're going to ask Derek here in the second segment a couple of these questions. And when we come back, let's start the show right there.
Okay, I see what you're doing. Sounds good.
Right?
Alrighty. Stand by. Here we go. 3, 2, and 1. Welcome back, second segment of the show, and you got something here before we get going too far.
Absolutely. There's nothing better than talking about our friends up at FM 123 in Newberry.
That's right. What's temperature?
61 degrees.
61. There's no cars on the street up there right now.
No, it's not. You know, they're probably all at Cedars having a pizza in a Deer Camp Coffee.
There you go.
And don't forget, Cedars in Newberry, in Mackinac, they now have Deer Camp Coffee. Check them out as well. But yeah, 61 degrees in Newberry.
All right. And I'd like to thank FM 123 for carrying our show on their network.
Right.
So there you go.
So,
Questions.
Mr. Derek, we got a couple questions. You don't rent out bows there, do you?
Nope,
Okay.
we do not.
What is one of your biggest pet peeves?
I don't know if I have. There's so many things that people do or assume that I may not agree with, but I've just learned to kind of let them all roll off my back anymore. I don't know that I have any. I think I talked about this last year, but it seems like every other person that goes in the range has their release set where they can barely reach the trigger when they're trying to shoot it, and I still haven't figured out why that is. They always want it so it's at the tip of their finger before they even draw the bow, and then when you draw the bow and put pressure on it, they're barely able to get their finger on it. So I guess that would be one of them.
There you go.
There you go.
Don't be reaching for the trigger.
Yeah. Yeah, it can be a big difference. If we can get them, if we can get them to shorten the release and they're open to it, almost every one of them. Oh yeah, that's way better. I don't know why I never did that before. So
Right.
Because they probably have never been properly watched.
Yeah. Well,
Right.
we run into that working at Cabela's a couple of times. People would come in with things and they had no clue.
Right?
You know?
We've had people literally not be able to reach the trigger and miss it. They're slapping at the trigger and they literally miss the trigger because their finger is behind it.
Oops.
Well, there was a guy that we shot with for a while, and when you're shooting, you never really pay that much attention to what the people next to you are doing because you're concentrating on your own shot. And he said, I don't understand why I can't shoot like you guys. He said, we're only shooting 20 yards. He says, I'm all over the place. He said, I'm just not good with this. I said, well, let me watch you shoot. And when he pulled back, I was like, oh my gosh, let down. And when he drew, he was overdrawn behind his ear.
Yeah.
At full draw. I mean, I don't know how he kept his ear on, to tell you the truth, but you have no anchor point when your string is behind your head.
Yeah, it wasn't a good scene.
So, just didn't know. So
Okay, another question for you. In your opinion, what is the greatest innovation or invention as an accessory for a compound bow that you've seen in the last few years?
Oh, that's a good call. I mean,
You
I don't know.
You think the releases? You think sights? You think?
in the last few years, I mean.
Yeah, in the last few years.
The biggest trend in the last few years is the sights like you guys are shooting, the multiple pin movable sights for sure. I mean, I think they've been around for a little while, but they've really caught fire the last 3 to 5 years. I've got a couple now myself, and I really kind of appreciate why they're getting so popular. It's not necessarily an invention, but it's just a trend, I guess.
Well, it's one of those things. I think the more you shoot, and then if you start going to these different types of shoots, it kind of makes sense.
Yeah, I mean, when you're in a deer hunting situation, especially in the Midwest where we're at, most guys are shooting 30 yards or less, maybe 40. So they really don't need a movable sight if they have 3 pins. So, from that standpoint, they don't have to worry about monkeying with their sight. The biggest drawback for single pin movables were, the kickback we always got was, well, I don't want to have to move it when there's a deer coming in. So this kind of eliminates that need. And some guys were comfortable with that, moving it, and they still shoot a single pin movable, no problem. But the guys with the 3 pin movables, now they don't have to worry about that, but then they can go shoot 80, 90, 100 yards. They can go to the tack shoot, they can shoot those shots and make all those adjustments, but while they're hunting, they don't have to worry about doing that. I think that's why that sight, niche has gotten so popular in the last few years.
I think so too, because I know I got 3 pins on mine, you got 4 on yours, and it is so comfortable knowing your 3 pins and basically your last pin becomes your slider pin, but it's just getting comfortable with that situation. But it's. I think you're right. I think the innovation, and I don't know if it's like you said, if it's been there depending on which type of field you were shooting in, and it's just kind of coming over to the hunting side. And
well, we shot, or the one I have on my hunting or my target rig, it's a single dot. It's got a scope on it, but it's a single dot, and you move the whole sight depending on what distance you want to shoot. And then going to this, the first thing that I noticed, Derek, is when we were shooting last night, and I dropped it out to 60 yards, and it's set up to hold that top pin, that 20-yard pin. That's what you use to sight with, no matter what distance you're going to shoot on that slider. And I'm looking down at the 50 because I'm thinking long range, and I'm like, whoa, wait, no. I didn't want to launch it over top of the back of the deer or the bag, So, but that was the thing that I had to realize really quick, the difference between shooting that target setup versus this one, even though they're similar.
So you have yours set up so that the top pin is lined up with the tape on yours right now? Is that what I'm?
Yeah.
Is that what you're getting at? Okay.
Yeah.
I got you. You can. That's the thing. You can set them up any way you want them. If you really want to get super far, the most range out of them. Most guys are actually using the bottom pin as what the tape is lined up with. So, like on your 4-pin, your needle would never go any shorter than 50 yards. For example. So when you got your sight all the way up, it's going to be 20, 30, 40, 50. And the needle's going to be hitting 50. And if you want to shoot 70, you dial it to 70, and it's the bottom pin rather than the top. And then the top 3 are then irrelevant. That's what most people do.
Okay.
But you can set them up. If you're always comfortable using the top pin, then you can use the top pin. You can use the middle pin. You can use whatever you want, really.
Okay. So the tape would actually be shorter?
well, it would be shorter, but we shot out to 70 last night, but we found out the other problem.
Right, yeah, he had to cut tree limbs. Like, I got a picture. Obviously, you can't see it, Derek, but this setup, I got that pin is on the 20, and that's where I started. And, it's at the top of the range, and that tape is I had to trim that tape down to fit on the housing, underneath the pointer, the indicator. So if I go to 100, I mean, it's almost down to the bottom. So, I mean,
right.
I don't think there's I don't know, I can look at it here.
Right. Well, trust me, you'll be comfortable with it. You shoot a deer at 100 yards, I'm going to call Denny Steiner.
Right. Yeah, see, I can crank that all the way down to past 100.
Yeah.
Yeah. You just got to worry about running into your arrow, arrow clearance.
Yep.
When you get far way up.
Oh, yeah, I got you.
And with the rest you guys are shooting now, it's hard to tell unless you
got to draw back.
Take the tension off of it,
Right.
Yep. So that's kind of cool. And I tell you what, those rests that you got us into, those limb-driven ones, those are cool.
Yeah, they work well. I've shot them for, I don't know, close to 10 years now. And, different variations of them over the years. And I just like the way they set up and tune better than cable-driven. Cable-driven work great. The QADs, the ripcords, they've been around a long time. They work phenomenal. There's just a little bit of a timing element involved, a little bit more setup time and all that kind of stuff that with the rim-driven you really don't have to do.
What I really liked about it, and I've shot a couple of different drop-aways, is the fact of you knock the arrow. There's really no place that like you got to flip the flipper rest up, to grab it. There's no noise. You put the arrow on the rest, you knock it, and the knock when knocking the string, that's the most noise it makes. So it's really
right.
really really quiet. That's what I liked about it.
Another question for you. What is better to shoot, one eye open or both eyes open, one eye closed?
Well, I mean, if you can do it, absolutely both eyes open. If you're a right-hand shooter and right eye dominant, you should shoot both eyes open. For depth perception, many factors. Myself, I'm left eye dominant. I shoot right-handed. I grew up shooting that way. I don't have to. I don't have to close my left eye, but I have to obstruct it, just squint it a little bit. So I'm not like super dominant left eye. It just is my dominant eye. And I've just learned to shoot that way. I shoot fine. Never had any issues with it. But some people really struggle. They try to shoot both eyes open and they're not realizing that their, the off eye is dominant. They'll have, a random shot where they literally shoot 3-4 feet left on a right-handed shooter. We have some kids that'll, they'll, even some adults that'll actually lean all the way across the bow and use their left eye to try to look through the peep, stuff like that. But yeah, for sure, both eyes open. If you have to shoot with your off arm, as far as, you may have to close your left eye on a right-handed shot or right eye lefty. For me, I just have to squint it. But if you can shoot both eyes open, it's definitely the way to do it.
There you go. That's kind of neat that you're left eye dominant, but you shoot right-handed. That's pretty cool.
Yeah, my dad tried to switch me, but it was just too late into it, and I was too, I guess, right hand strong to switch. And I can shoot bows left-handed working in the shops, and if we have, I can get a 70-pound bow back left-handed. I don't like to do it, but I can do it for tuning purposes. It's not fun, but and I can shoot and tune them. It just doesn't feel natural to me.
Hey, I got a question from somebody. I won't mention their name yet because I'll ask the question. You probably know who it is. Have you ever left a hidden message on a customer's bow?
Never.
Okay.
Never.
I didn't think you did.
Not that he'll admit to.
Speaking of left eye dominant, right eye dominant, could you do a little demonstration on how to determine which eye is dominant?
Well, the easiest way is to, hold your hands out, like a circle or a diamond pattern, if you guys can see that. Mm-hmm. Pick an object out, with both eyes open, pick an object out on the wall or at a distance, and then, close an eye. Is that object still there? If it's not, you closed your dominant eye. If it's there, then that's your dominant eye that's still open. That's the easiest one. When kids come in the shop and they're unsure and they're not comfortable doing that, I'll have them do that at my, say I'll close one eye and I'll have them make a circle around one of my eyes. And I'll see which eye I can see through the circle, and I can tell which to do that kind of stuff. But the thing on the wall for adults or kids that are a little bit older works pretty well.
Yep, it does. It's really simple too, and it's kind of fun if they've never tried it and you get them to do it, and they're like, "Really?" Yeah, that's what it means.
You'd be surprised how many. There's a lot of people that are off eye dominant. It's surprising.
Yep. Exactly. That's why it's one of the most important first steps in setting up a bow.
Yeah, you gotta know which eye to use.
Right?
Definitely.
Yeah.
Oh, you're being called out. That's lies. You've left. I can see where that's going.
I'll tell you what. Let's take our next break. When we come back, we want to shift gears just a little bit.
Yep.
And take it down a different path here. So we'll be right back after this. Okay.
If you got any more questions for Derek, we'll ask him in the upcoming. But we're going to talk about his scouting adventures next and how that's working out for him getting in closer to the season. Actually, you going to be able to get out this weekend with your daughter?
Yeah.
Okay, cool. All right. We'll be able to. Nope.
We're on break. Yeah, we're on break, right?
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah, we're still.
Yeah, we're going. This is your first youth hunt, so.
Okay, cool. We'll ask about that in the next segment. That's cool.
Okay.
All right, here we go. 3, 2, and 1. Welcome back, third segment of the show. So,
and don't worry, folks. It's mistyped in the. It does say spot shooters. Don't worry.
It'll be corrected.
We'll correct it.
Old habits die hard.
All right. It's one of those things. No fears.
I forgive you.
I made a mistake on another supporter about 4 weeks ago, and when you're starting to switch things around a little bit, old habits die hard.
Right, exactly. Yeah. So this weekend here in Michigan, we're going to be having the Youth and Liberty hunts, and your daughter is going out for her first hunt, correct?
Correct.
Is she going to be using a bow, or is she going to be using a gun or a crossbow?
She's 8 years old, and she would rather use a bow, but she doesn't pull enough weight yet. She's only pulling about 21 pounds, so we're gonna be using 350 Legend. I've had her shoot it a handful of times this summer, and she's doing pretty well with it.
Excellent, excellent. Well, good luck getting out there. Saturday and Sunday this week. I think it's also the Liberty Hunt, right?
You're asking the wrong person. I
won't even look at you then.
When you told me that the first time, I was like, already this soon? I had no clue.
They changed it last year to the same weekend, and I think it's the second year it's been this early. But
yeah, they moved it up, and it always seems now that it's early, it's falling on Woods and Water this year again, and whatever else is going around town.
So we're gonna see some deer get dragged into Woods and Water, maybe.
Maybe. It depends on how warm it's going to be.
That's true.
It's going to be hot. It's going to be hot.
Ooh, that's not going to be good.
Mid-80s.
T-shirt and shorts.
T-shirt, shorts, and Crocs.
There you go.
So, let's talk a little bit about your upcoming hunting times. I know you've been doing some scouting, having the cameras out. How is it looking out there where you're going to be hunting?
It looks good. I mean, I don't get to get out there this time of year much, so I do rely on cameras. I can sneak out there. You know, I have a couple cell cameras. Not enough, in my opinion, but they're expensive. So, but I have a lot of regular cameras out there that I just swap cards on once a month through the summer, and a little more frequently close and during the season. But it looks good. I mean, the area I hunt in Michigan, down in Calhoun County primarily, there's a lot of deer, a lot of bucks, a lot of good bucks. Most of the state, you can't say that. I think, the quality in that area is far superior to anything else I've ever hunted in Michigan, personally. It's fun to hunt out there.
You think it's comparable, or I know when you talk Michigan, everybody's like, oh, Jackson. Do you think it's comparable, if not better, there out there?
I think it's just as good. There's less urban, probably. I think Jackson's got some good farm country too, but a lot of the big bucks are in and around some of the cities too, where it's hard to get access, or they get a little bit older. But I think that whole south central, Jackson, Washtenaw, Hillsdale, Calhoun, Eaton County, there's a bunch of them. They all have quality deer. If you've got decent neighbors, and the most important thing is big properties that surround you, in my opinion. If you could have a prime 160-acre piece, but if you got 20 neighbors that have 5 or 10 acres each, you're not going to be able to get age class deer. But if you got that same 160 acres and you only have 2 or 3 neighbors that are 280, 300 on the other side, then there's a good chance, even though they're getting hunted, that some deer got a chance to survive. And that's the biggest key is getting into that 3, 4, 5 year old age class that most people in Michigan don't get to experience very often, unfortunately.
Right. Are you guys doing any doe management on your properties?
We kill a few, but the ratio out there is phenomenal. I mean, I've had many bow seasons where, at least early bow season, talking prior to gun opener, I've seen at least 50% bucks from the stand.
Okay.
And that's no exaggeration. I mean, there's times where you get a big family group of does come through and it'll skew the numbers, but in general, if I see 6 or 8 deer, 3 or 4 of them are going to be bucks.
Okay.
And a good chance that, that they're going to have at least a couple with some age to them. So we do kill some does, though. I mean, we don't go crazy. We probably kill, the equal number of does and bucks each year, which isn't many considering the ground. We hunt, any given year anywhere from 12 to 1,500 acres out in that area, and it's a group of us. So, on average, we kill, anywhere from 4 to 7 or 8 bucks a year, and probably a similar number of does.
Okay. So you're not
almost like a 1-to-1.
Yeah. Well, you're not letting them go, and just making a pass on them, where you start skewing those numbers.
When I first started hunting out there around 2010, we had a couple of farms that had a ton of deer and a ton of does, and we shot them. And then I forget what year it was. It might have been 2012 or 13 when EHD hit out there, and it absolutely wiped them out. I mean, that farm, you would see 15 to 20 deer sit in the timber. I'm not talking about looking at them, 200 yards out in the field. I'm talking coming by in bow range. On average, and in the following season, you were seeing, 2 or 3 if you're lucky.
Yeah, EHD, when it hit out there, I mean, it really devastated that whole area pretty heavily. Speaking of that area, you mentioned EHD. I mean, let's mention the other dirty 3-letter word, CWD. Concerns with that at all right now?
I don't personally worry too much about it because it's nothing I can do about it. And it's kind of the same thing with EHD. I worry about EHD more because it literally will wipe them out in 2 weeks. Where CWD, they can live, deer can live most of its life with it. I mean, eventually, they'll die from it, but it's not like it's going to kill them in 2 or 3 days like EHD would.
Right.
So obviously, there's concern with it, but I don't think it's something, at least from what I know about it, and I don't know a lot about it, doesn't seem like it's something that you can really control or get rid of.
Right. All right, enough about that.
Well, that's it, right?
That whole hot.
I was just about to say, here we are mid-September, and we really haven't heard or been talked about any breakouts of EHD so far that we've trickled out of August.
Well, we've had some good wet weather this year. We haven't. I mean, now at the very beginning of spring, I will say that we had some drought conditions they were concerned about. But there, midpoint of the summer before it got really bad. We got some good rain, so we didn't have those dry areas. Where that's usually when they have those outbreaks, is when it's really, really dry. So
right, exactly.
It seems like when it's really wet early and then dry late is the worst because you get all the receding water and all that mud that the midges come from, and
right.
Those seem to be the worst years.
Yep, exactly.
But I haven't heard a single report from anywhere, which is good.
Yep.
Usually by now you're hearing it somewhere, whether it's out of state or
even across the country, I've not really heard any huge outbreaks, even on social media. And usually, somewhere you hear about it, but I really haven't. I don't think I've heard anything about it this year.
No, I haven't.
So,
you obviously, because we were showing some of your trail cam pictures that you sent us, use trail cams a lot.
Yep.
What would be your opinion? And you're allowed to step up on your soapbox if you want. If they do like they did in Arizona and ban game cameras.
I wouldn't be happy about it, but if they ban them, they ban them.
Do you think it's taken away from hunting, or it's causing running? Obviously, you do a lot of private hunting more so, but do you think it would lead to more? What did they say? Hunter running into other hunters.
hunter conflict.
Thank you.
I think in Arizona the big issue is the limited water supplies, and then so the game relying on water, and that water will have a bunch of cameras on it and people fighting over the spots and that kind of stuff. If they banned them, obviously I wouldn't use them, but I'd be upset about it, because I really enjoy that aspect of it. I see both sides of it. From a positive standpoint, I think it promotes letting younger deer go because you know what's there. And if you didn't know that you had 3 or 4 really good bucks running around, and you had a mediocre buck come in, you might shoot that deer. But if you know you got better deer in the area, you're probably not going to shoot them. If that makes sense.
No, that makes perfect sense. It's knowing what's on the menu.
But in some of the states, and I'll use Ohio as an example because they can bait, and they're only allowed to shoot 1 buck. With the cell cam technology, the feeders, that you can basically manually, set, and you don't have to go there for, let's say a month to refill it. If you got a good deer in the area and he's using that feeder, and you don't hunt the feeder until you know for a fact he's coming in daylight hours, you're probably going to kill that deer.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, if you're smart about it. So from that standpoint, it maybe makes it a lot easier. But I don't know. I hope they don't outlaw them, because anything that gets outlawed that as a hunting can hurt the industry. If they start chipping away at that, what's next?
Yeah. Well, absolutely. Well, that's the thing, right? Well, I know you just got some new cameras back in the shop today, and if they're banned, those go by the wayside. You know, I guess you mark out and put security camera or something.
Security, yeah.
I know, but you're right. On the flip side of that is that big buck that you talk about in Ohio. You might have never ever saw it if you didn't have the camera. So.
Right.
You know, like you said, so then you're out there, you're sitting there, and all of a sudden you see a buck come by, and all of a sudden you go ahead and take that buck, and all of a sudden, standing on the other side of the field is this big buck you've never seen before.
Yeah, well, they're great management tools. I mean,
I think so.
So many aspects in the way you can use them. So, I guess the biggest thing is just, you know, use them to your hunting style and do it ethically, you know. I always say, you know, ethics is what you do when somebody's not watching. So
absolutely, it's one of those things. You got to get out there, and it just bugs me that the reasons they're giving. And you're right. In Arizona, it's a little bit different than in Michigan because water holes are very prevalent, needed because of no other water around.
Right.
So it's one of those things. Here in Michigan, you could throw a stone and hit a lake.
Yeah, it just for them, I think it boiled down to a fair chase, you know, thing. I don't know. I don't know all the details.
Well, it came up several months ago, and it's just kind of one of those questions. I obviously, you use the game camera a lot. We've talked to other people asking the same question, and it basically comes down to it's a management tool that you use to let bucks go, maybe see what's in the area that you've never seen before, and kind of sets how you set up your hunting.
Yeah, I use it. 90% of what I use them for is just inventory. I want to know what's around. I don't put cameras generally at stand locations at all because I think it is pressure, and I've seen deer negatively react to them. So I put cameras on video mode before I watch deer walk in front of the camera, look at it, literally turn and run. So I don't want that to happen at or around a stand location. So I just need to know what's in the area. So I usually put them on the edges of, you know, food sources, corn or bean fields, wherever you're hunting. You know, you can put them in acorns this time of year. They're hitting acorns pretty hard. You know, where a couple major travel corridors, you know, cross, stuff like that. But I'm not necessarily trying to pinpoint exactly where that deer is at that time. Some guys do that and it works for them. I just try to avoid it. Usually if I can figure out that a deer's in an area and he's using that area, you know, somewhat frequently, I can put the pieces of the puzzle together from there. I don't need to see him on camera standing in front of my tree to know I can kill him in that tree.
Well, that's it, right? That's just one of those things, you know, that's another thing about baiting, right? Very seldom will you get those big bucks to come directly into the bait anyway, so if you're not, you know, like you said, you've got your cameras off to the side or in different areas, just seeing what's around the area. You know, if they're gonna walk under your stand, you're gonna kill it. So you're gonna give it a heck of a whirl. Those are some pretty nice bucks on those.
Yeah, that's some nice antlers on these bucks, I will say.
Right? So, and a shout out to Mark Coleman. Mark Coleman took a little break from our show because he needed to go outside and take care of some ground hornets that he introduced to gasoline, and he made it back.
There you go. You know, that's the best way to take care of ground hornets is teach them what petrol is.
Right?
And fire.
Does he still have his eyelashes?
I know, right? That's a good one. Yeah, Mark, you still got your eyelashes. That's a good one.
That's funny. Yeah, we had something similar that we had to deal with at Nancy's house. So,
have you ever run into a problem like that when you're out early season? You know, you climbing up a tree or you're sitting in a tree and all of a sudden you kind of notice that there's high activity and all of a sudden you see a nest that you kind of didn't notice before because maybe the leaves or the foliage was on it, and it's like all of a sudden you're out there at midday and all of a sudden they get pretty active.
I had a stand, and this was probably 6 or 7 years ago, that I hung the stand and I was trimming shooting lanes. This was early summer. And I got just about done trimming lanes and I stepped on a ground bee hole and they lit me up. I got out of there and never went back. Never hunted that stand.
Wow, they won.
It wasn't a spot. Obviously, I wasn't overly thrilled with it after I realized it. And that happens. I'll hang stands at times and I will never hunt. And it just based on intel and how everything ends up working out that season or what I'm seeing in other areas, it's not that uncommon that I won't hunt a stand that I have hung on any given year.
Okay. Oh, that's
But
another.
in that instance, the bees didn't help for sure.
Right. Oh, I get that. That's a good question. We see pictures of deer. Are you getting a lot of pictures of coyotes on these same properties?
At times, this summer, not too bad, but I've got a buddy that has a lease that's really close to some of mine, and he's sending me 3 to 5 coyote pics a day. I mean, all times of the day, midday, night, you name it. I mean, he's overrun with them. And they seem, I've had years like that on some of the farms, and then 2 years later, you don't have any coyote. It's almost like they're following whatever they're feeding on. You know, they're overrunning an area, and then they're moving to the next farm. I get them occasionally, in many farms, but I'm not getting them a ton like I have in the past.
Okay. All right then. And by the way, Mark Coleman still has his eyebrows because his wife would not let him light him up because it was too close to the house.
No, man, that's no fun.
Right? So, there you go.
Gotta have a challenge.
Right? So, I tell you what, we're bumping up on our last break. When we come back, we're going to talk a little bit about leasing. You kind of gave me some insight on going after some leases and how I want to kind of talk to you about how you guys get into it and do it.
All right, let's step outside, take our last break, and we'll be right back after this.
All right, folks, last segment. Poor Billy. They're lighting him up.
What's that?
What's a chase Billy? I can only imagine. So, but yeah, last segment of the show.
Alrighty. Here we go. 3, 2, and 1. Welcome back to the last segment of the show. So we've got our bow set up. We've talked about a little bit about scouting, getting ready for season, where the deer are at, ground bees,
Right?
and
Coyotes.
and coyotes. And you mentioned leasing. Talking about the lease. Is it something you've just gotten into here recently? Is it something that you and your friends have done over the years for a long period of time? Or talk a little bit about that.
I've had a few different leases over the years. Only the one in Michigan, and that was just pure luck. Being in the industry, talking to a customer that happened to have a group of guys, and this is the Calhoun County stuff. They had been doing it for a while, and they had a portion of that group that was going to be leaving at the end of that season and had some openings, and I was fortunate enough to be one of the guys that got in at that time, and that's been phenomenal for me. It's been as good a hunting as I've ever had, even including some of my a lot of my out-of-state hunts, which hasn't been a lot. I've done a little bit of out-of-state hunting. I hunted Illinois back in 2005 to 2008, and that originally started, there was a program back then called Access Illinois where you could basically put your group size in, what you were looking for, and then there was a database of farmers that also said, hey, I've got X amount of acres and looking for X amount of guys to hunt it, here's the price. We had yearly leases. The first year we went, we actually just leased it by the day for 7 days during November. It was phenomenal. We had 1 day to scout and hang stands. I think we hung 7 or 8 sets in 1 day. Hunted the next day, and we were covered up in bucks. There's 3 of us. I think all 3 of us had, opportunities at least, 100 to 115 inch deer, which in Michigan, you're flinging arrows at, not necessarily down there. But we liked it so much that we approached the landowner that following season about, just leasing it outright rather than, by the day or whatever. And he, he liked the idea as long as he could get similar money to what he was making doing it the other route. So we ended up, going through with that. I hunted there for 3 or 4 years. And, at the time it was more than I could afford, probably stretching it. I was getting married, had kids, so I got out of it after 2008, for cost reasons mainly. I lucked into the Michigan stuff in 2009, so it kind of worked out. But recently, I've been looking more for an out-of-state option. I like to be able to extend, my odds, or increase my odds of killing a good deer. So I've been looking hard, and there's a few different websites out there that we had a lease a couple years ago in Indiana that we got through Hunting Lease Network. It's kind of an auction setup, kind of like when I'll put a property out there with a starting bid, and it just gets bid up for a week to 2 weeks, and the highest bid wins. That can get pretty expensive if it's in a good area. In the last year, I've always known of base camp, never really understood base camp. You go on there, you look at the leases, as just a casual observer, and it doesn't look like they have much to offer. But when we dug a little bit deeper into it, I got a buddy of mine that, he's been kind of looking for the same thing, something to hunt out of state, even if it's only a week. If it's close, maybe we can sneak down a couple extra weekends or whatever. But so we looked a little bit harder into the base camp thing, and what it boils down to is if you're serious about finding an out-of-state lease, you have to pay for their premium membership.
Okay.
Or you're not going to see anything that's worth a damn.
Right.
So, because what you're seeing as a casual observer, if you go on Basecamp right now, is stuff that made it through 10 days of members looking at it.
Okay.
And I think it's $250. So what we did is we pulled 3 guys together that were serious about looking for. We split it, whatever it was, $70 or $80 a guy. We pooled our money together, got one membership, and then shared the login and password so that we could all jump on and see, because they launch leases 3 times a week, Mondays, Wednesdays, Fridays, and there's usually 6 of them to 15 of them every time they launch. So when you're talking about 30 to 50 new leases every week becoming available, and even at that, if it's in, let's say, a lease popped up in Pike County, Illinois. Everybody's heard of Pike County, Illinois.
Actually, I'm in Indiana right now, and I see in Henry. You can go. I guess it's county by county, which is kind of cool.
Yep.
And then it's a green one, and I picked on it, and there's a property for lease in Henry County.
Yeah, that's one. If you're not a member, that's one that's been sitting there for a while. So it's probably not. Obviously, it's not high demand because, like I was going to say, you get one that pops up, and let's say Pike County, Illinois, for example, it will be gone in 30 seconds. Period. If you don't click, if you see something that's in your you got to have a game plan. You have to pick a couple states or a couple regions of states that you're looking for, and the amount of acreage and the price point you're comfortable with, and you have to jump on them. That's the key. So there is some risk involved. They do have a little bit of protection, in that you can back out of a lease if you end up walking it, or something comes up. You're just going to lose your $400 deposit, basically. So it's a $400 risk. But if you pay attention and you're on there and you set your clock by it and you're serious, you will find something that'll work for you. From what me and the couple of guys we're doing it with, from what we've seen, and we've only been doing that since this past winter. And we found 2 actually in southern Indiana within a month or so of joining.
That's awesome. I've never seen the site till I asked you about it, and it popped it up. And yeah, I definitely see where you need a game plan. Just kind of clicking through some, because like some so-called leases are just basically a farm field.
Yep.
You got it is what it is. But if you don't do any homework.
Yeah, in some of the waterfowl states, stuff like that goes because of the goose hunter. So you got. They're leasing. They're not just deer hunters. Some guys are waterfowl or even turkey or whatever it might be. But yeah, obviously you got to look at it. You're going to see it, but you got to make a quick decision for the most part in the really good areas anyway.
Right. So obviously you just got to kind of do your homework. Where you're going to go, what area you want to go, and just kind of stay on it. You said Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, right? That they release new.
Yep.
Leases.
I think it's at 7 p.m.
Okay, so definitely got to be on your toes.
Set your watch.
Set your watch, and you and your buddies, everybody get on if you're in a group, and just wait and know where you're going. But that's awesome. You know, it's kind of cool. I never really knew how you got these leases. I know a lot of it is through word of mouth, but this is cool.
I mean, yeah, you barely have time to call, you know, and I say, what do you think of this one? You want it, yes or no? And sometimes we did that on when we were going to do another piece. We got a 58-acre piece, and we wanted to add a little bit to it if we could find one close. And we found one literally 2 miles down the road. By the time we called, said, yeah, let's do it, jumped back on, it was gone. I mean, it was all in less than, you know, a minute, 2 minutes tops. So
is it a bidding war, or do they have a set price, and then all of a sudden you just take that price?
you know what the price is right now. So as soon as it launches, it has a price. You get a little bit better price if you send a money order check. You know, if you pay with a credit card, they add, you know, 5% or whatever it is. But
And there's a property. It just happens. There's a property up in Chippewa County. The price is $4,098. So that's the price you would pay. 400 acres.
So $100 an acre.
Michigan's harder to lease in than, you know, more expensive oftentimes than out of state because there's just so much more demand for it. It's harder to find leases in Michigan than it is in, say, Indiana or Illinois or Ohio, in my opinion.
Really? I wouldn't have guessed that. I would have figured the people in this state, all the hunters we have, and we've got a ton of hunters, would be looking to go out of state.
They are, but they're also looking for the honey holes here, and there's not a lot of them. So if something pops up, they go for big money. It's scary, really.
And in Ohio, there's no leases available right now.
None available.
Right?
They don't seem to get a ton of them. Indiana, Illinois, you know, even Kentucky, Kansas, they seem to have more. They get them in Ohio, but they don't seem to pop up as frequently. They usually, you know, maybe one or two, you know, maybe a handful a week in Ohio, and Ohio goes really fast.
You know, I got to think too. You know, here in Michigan, we're blessed to have so much state land to be able to access. You know, Indiana and I believe Ohio's another one. There's not a lot compared to what we have here in Michigan. So you got to figure people who've got land down there know somebody that likes to hunt, or, you know, like you said, they keep it in the family, what have you, because it's so hard to find places to hunt.
Ohio, southern Ohio and southeast Ohio, there's a lot of public. Not when you compare it to Michigan overall, but there's a lot of good public hunting in Ohio and way down in southern Indiana, and actually a lot right down where our leases are. There's a lot of public down there, and it's all big hill country. It's stuff that, you know, I'll be honest, I'm not comfortable in yet. As far as, you know, how to hunt it, I'm used to, you know, farms and edges and pinch points and stuff like that, and it's just, you're hunting a lot more terrain than, you know, edges like you do up here. So there's a learning curve. We'll see how it goes.
Do you have one of the questions that's coming up is do you have any restrictions, like on the lease that you're having in Indiana, trail cams, trimming limbs? Is there all written in the lease? Anything like that?
Yeah, each lease will have its own, may or may not have restrictions on whether you can drive an ATV on it, whether you can plant food plots. That's all. They send you basically a whole packet of information based on which lease you have, what the rules might be based on the landowner. Usually there's landowner contact information, all that kind of stuff. So each lease has its own agreement.
Okay. So, and another question is, like with your Illinois one that you've done, have you run into any issues with the locals or the conservation officers, anything like that?
Back when I hunted Illinois, I don't know if it was the first or second year, we had one trespasser. It happened to be a neighbor that used to be able to hunt there. We talked to him. We never had an issue with him again. Outside of that, as far as out-of-state stuff, I've never had any issues.
Cool. Well, I tell you what, we've had you on for about an hour, and I think we've had some great information tonight. Just a reminder, everybody, here in Michigan, Get your bow work done.
Yeah, get it worked on. You better get it to your pro shop here really quick because you've got about 3 weeks. Well, 3 weeks from Friday is the opener. Am I right?
Yep, you're right.
Three weeks from opener from tomorrow.
Yep.
And don't forget, on Facebook, check out Sunrise Archery or check out sunrisearchery.com.
Right there's a website.
Yep, right there. So, give Derek a call over there if you're in the local area. See if he's not too busy. Get in there. He's got all your needs.
Go check out the boots.
And
as
check
well.
out the boots.
Yep, absolutely. So, well, I'll tell you what, we'll wrap up the show here, and want to thank you for spending some time with us here. Hang on, as soon as we get off the air here, we'll chat real quick and we'll let you go. But
Okay.
For those everybody that's watching or listening on the podcast, next week we've got
Paul from JPO Game Calls. He should be back from his Colorado elk hunt, which he texted me earlier this week, and he says he's having a tough go at it.
Okay. Well, I've had similar instances before, so I know what you're talking about.
I know he's on horseback, so
Oh wow. Okay. So he's down deep. He's in there deep.
right.
All right. So I tell you what, everybody, if you're listening to us on the podcast, go over to iTunes, give us a like, follow, share or actually give us a review over there. It will help us and help the people who support us. Go over to Sunrise Archery, get on their social media pages, give them a like, follow, share, as well as us, and don't forget to share the show as well. So we'll be back again next week talking with Paul from JPO Game Calls. Y'all take care. We'll see you again next Thursday night.